2 normal rally events remain, and I think for our last 2, we are going to use the Toyota RSC, which I switched over to from the Renault 5, and now it's time as ever to do a little bit of tuning to this thing, just to make sure that we have everything in check. So, first and foremost, gonna put on racing brakes, because I figured they may be needed for our next course, and as ever, putting on the more expensive dirt tyres in this game, as they cost 22,000 credits to fit, and sure, I'll put on weight reduction, just to make this thing a little faster, and also going to put on sports suspension because, well, we're using another SUV, and also because I think we should be okay with this, as I will also put on, oh, we can only fit the supercharger. How much is it to fit engine parts? You know what? That's actually not too much of a power difference, personally. I think I'll be able to work with that. And that's everything else. Okay. Well, I need this thing to be up to at least 350 if we're going to be on the cusp. Yeah, you know what? I will put on the port polish. Just because the only other option I have aside from engine tuning is the supercharger, which I don't really need. I think we should be fine with that. And last but not least, let's get a little more acceleration with the carbon drive shaft. And then I think we should be good, from what I can tell. You know what? I'll put on a single clutch, and then I'll put on the racing flywheel, just because, well, they're both cheap, and because they could be useful for the bumps that we're about to encounter. Since we are basically heading, of course, to the dirt variant of El Capitan for the first one. Anyway, I think that's everything we need, so let's go to Yosemite Rally 1, after I did my select share of tuning. Forward and reverse as before. Okay, let's go. And unsurprisingly, our first opponent is the Ford RS200. So, I think it's fair to say we should be okay with this, is what me thinks. So, turning off the driving aids because I don't need them. And now, we will begin Yosemite Rally 1 on the normal difficulty against the red Ford RS200. I'm convinced in saying the tuning I put on this thing is not needed. But either way, sometimes there are certain risks you have to take. I was convinced in saying this might be easy, but so far at least, I'm a bit skeptical to say for sure. But at least I can say I did manage to spend a decent chunk of money without having to buy the turbocharger. Sorry, the supercharger, which is the one thing I know for sure I absolutely did not need. But either way, we go and move on with our progression, and the Ford RS200 at the moment, he's keeping a pretty accurate lock on me, so it's fair to say he's not letting me walk away with this one at the moment. We are keeping pretty close to one another, even then of course if the point score would suggest differently, but either way, it's okay, because I feel like for these next 3 laps, I kind of need that sort of battle, just to make it more interesting, if possible. I know rubber banding around here is usually stronger than it is on most courses on the dirt, so I'm not too surprised to say that the Ford is keeping up with me. Even then, of course, if this is a case of me using yet another SUV to showcase pretty much all-terrain superiority. But anyway, I know the AI tend to be stronger down this back part of the racetrack compared to the player. This is normally the bit of the track where the AI tend to close back in, because they're usually stronger through this sector of the course. Gap is currently 3.6 seconds. I think it's fair to say if we're up against the Ford RS200 again for the second race, we probably don't need as much tuning on this thing as what we currently have. I reckon if we remove the power upgrades, I reckon 300 will probably go with this course and this next race just fine. Because I do have a 2-second lead. And I think it's fair to say that we're not really that close, from what I can see. But anyway, we continue to progress further and further along, as the gap is now 4.6 seconds, so I think it's fair to say whatever engine upgrades we fitted to this thing, we know they're not needed for the second race now, the way I see things. They probably won't be needed for the other event either, because we technically have the acceleration improvement upgrades we need anyway, so I think from that side of things at least we should be okay. It's nice to know that we do get to drive part of El Capitan whilst we are very much racing on the dirt here for most of it. Well, mainly gravel, but nice to know that we are of course able to race on part of El Capitan as basically being like one of those, well, I guess you could say rallycross courses, if you will. But either way, I gotta say, at the time and day when I'm recording this, I was actually thinking it might be possible for me to get through all of the normal rally events to open up 2025, but I actually didn't think it was going to be possible for me to do that for reals. But there we go, we got it done. The Toyota RSC has pretty much conquered the RS200. And with relative ease as well, I might add. But there we go. So, one race down and 3 races to go. I might as well save this replay now that I think about it. Because I can. And... yep. Okay. Now I just have one more replay left to save in the normal rally events, and then that'll show we are done. And this time we are up against the Evo 4. I think that tells me we don't need the engine tuning for this, from what I can tell. I think we should be fine. Well, I'll still put the computer chip on just in case, but I think we should be okay with this, from what I can tell. I don't really think the engine upgrade we fitted is going to be necessary for this. I think we should be fine, from what I can see. And not really much of a change in the point score. Basically, I just took off the engine upgrade and it only increased by 3. Although, the last time I did a race on the reversed course that was only 10 points scored in the end, I wound up having an extraordinary battle with the Audi Quattro. And that was when I was driving my black Subaru Impreza earlier on, which, believe it or not, is older than that Evo 4, but either way, I did put together what was a pretty good race, and I did manage to outduel the Audi, even though they weren't able to get the rally car version of the Audi Quattro. Still, the road car version to me, I think in this game, it was still more than enough to show basically the car that really launched the Group B era, even though it ended, of course, due to tragic circumstances and also serious concerns regarding driver and spectator safety. But either way, from what I know at least with racing in the 80s, a lot of it was very much based on turbocharged triple-digit horsepower figures, sometimes even quadruple-digit figures in horsepower. And this race is definitely proving to be another banger, like what I had prior with the Audi Quattro, where we were basically just battling tooth and nail, and yet I was able to pretty much run away with the win in the end, because I pretty much scored it by setting a pretty solid sector time in I think it was either Sector 2 or Sector 3 of this course. it was probably Sector 3, where I managed to set the run up and pretty much just, well, you know, break away from my opponent. But this time around, however, it's fair to say that the Evo 4 is definitely keeping tabs with me, the way things currently stand. So it's fair to say that we do certainly have at least some way of showing that we are very much able to stay in the fight. And probably didn't need to break there right at the end, but either way, I am glad to say the Evo 4 is keeping on tabs with me. So he is keeping close with me, but we haven't exactly had anything crazy. It's just been a case of, well, strong rubber banding and me not making my Toyota too overpowered to not at least have a close race. Which is probably what the case is here, but... And, yep. I got caught out by the oversteer. And I get a bump from behind, but somehow I did not get penalised for it. Maybe that was because I was already in the fence. So, that got pretty crazy pretty fast, if I do say so myself. And we make a little contact, but the game lets me get away with that one, so... I was not expecting the last lap to be closer, but... I think it's fair to say this time around, the last lap definitely did get close there for a second. And he is still behind me, but... It is fair to say that he's not going to catch me, unless I have another spin. But anyway, 1.9 seconds is now the gap. And up to this point, it looks like we're going to get away with this one, and we do. So, another close race at Cathedral Rocks 1 Reverse, just as I had with the Audi Quattro, and still a pretty easy win, nonetheless. Even though I basically did lead that race from start to finish, but either way, it was still a good race nonetheless, and I liked it. Do I have a replay saved of this? I think I do, but it is worth checking. Yeah, we do have one saved. Okay, let's now go get our prize for this event. And we get another Subaru Pretzel rally car. And this time we have got the Richard Burns model of Subaru. I think the first one he drove when he took over as Subaru's lead driver after Colin left for Ford, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, there we go. And now there is just one normal rally event that remains, and then a bit later on we'll be getting through the hard rally events. So there we go. That was Yosemite Rally 1. And we're now up to 20% flat. And we've now driven 512 miles altogether as we reach the first fifth of progress in this game. Now I have to find another Subaru, and here is that other Subaru. Right here. I'm also pretty sure that's a Rally Monte Carlo sticker I see on the front there. I've got a feeling that's what it is. But anyway. There it is, and I will not be surprised if this is one of the cars I use for the hard rally events that will be upcoming in a bit. Anyway, that's our prize from Yosemite Rally 1. Another rally car is ours, and I can definitely say we've won a lot of rally cars this time around. So, one event to go in the normal rally events, and then after that I'll figure something out. Anyways, yeah, time now for Yosemite Rally 2 coming up next.